Why has the Afghan president abandoned peace talks with the Taliban? Hamid Karzai says it's up to Pakistan now to end the war. Where do the two neighbours stand now? Where does this put the battle for Afghanistan? This is Inside Story. Hello, welcome to the programme. I'm David Foster. On Saturday, the Afghan President, Hamid Karzai, said his government will no longer hold peace talks with the Taliban, adding that efforts at dialogue should focus instead on neighbouring Pakistan. Karzai's comments came the same day that Afghanistan's intelligence service said that it has evidence that the assassination of former Afghan President Jalal Rabbani was planned by the Taliban Council in the southern Pakistani city of Quetta. From Kabul, Jennifer Glass reports.
The Haqqani network is blamed by U.S. and Afghan officials for this high-profile assault on the U.S. Embassy and NATO headquarters here in Kabul last month, among many other attacks in the capital and around Afghanistan. The Haqqani network is described by Afghan intelligence sources as a radical religious group with close ties to al-Qaeda and Pakistan's intelligence service, the ISI.
NATO says disrupting the network is a top priority and is in the midst of a widespread operation against it. That has resulted in the capture of a senior member of the Haqqani network. Haji Mali Khan is believed to be the top-ranking member in his province and responsible for a number of attacks on NATO and Afghan forces.
This taking of one of their senior leaders on Afghan soil into imprisonment is a big step forward and will be a serious step back for the Haqqani network.
In the meantime, Afghan President Hamid Karzai is rethinking the peace process. For nearly 3 years, his government tried to negotiate with the Taliban. Now he says that strategy must change.
I do not have any other answer except to say that the other side of the peace talks must be Pakistan, because I cannot find Mullah Muhammad Omar. I cannot find the Taliban Shura. A messenger came from them and killed, and there is no reaction from them. Who else is there to talk to except Pakistan?
A year ago, Karzai established a peace council to lead talks with the Taliban. Nearly 2 weeks ago, the head of the council and Karzai's top peace negotiator, Jalal Rabbani, was murdered in his own home by a suicide bomber posing as a messenger from the Taliban. The Taliban's former ambassador to Pakistan, Mullah Abdul Salam Zaif, does not think the strategy will work.
When the Pakistan is not able to resolve their problem, how the Pakistan is able to resolve the problem of Afghanistan?
Afghan officials say the Rabbani murder investigation leads to the Pakistani city of Quetta, which is believed to be home to the Taliban's High Council. An Afghan investigative team will head to Pakistan to follow up. Pakistan's cooperation there could be a good indication of its potential as a peace partner. Jennifer Glass, Al Jazeera, Kabul.
Well, add to that mix the fact that a leading figure in the group called the Islamic Front for the Salvation of Afghanistan, the brother of the former Afghan Northern Alliance leader Ahmad Shah Massoud, well, he has accused President Karzai of having regular contacts with the Pakistani intelligence service and has called for the rebuilding of the Northern Alliance forces to stand up to the Pakistani plan, he says, to control Afghanistan.
Pakistan continues to attack the Afghan land, and the president is silent. What does that mean? It means that our government is in total agreement with the Taliban and the Pakistani intelligence. There is no need to deceive ourselves. This government will not improve and its policies will not change. Therefore, we have to think seriously about rebuilding our force as it was during Ahmad Shah Massoud. If we don't do this, we'll continue to be killed every day. And for a century, God forbids, Pakistanis will rule Afghanistan with the help of Taliban.
Now, to talk about this and a great deal more, in Islamabad, Ali Sawat Naqvi, a former senior Pakistani diplomat to a number of countries, including the US and the UN. In Paris, Omar Samad, former spokesman for the Afghan Foreign Ministry and a former Afghan ambassador to a number of countries, including Canada and France. And in Kabul, Jalal Rabbani, a consultant on Afghan affairs and son of the late President Rabbani. He also served as his advisors. Welcome, gentlemen. Mr. Rabbani, to you, first of all, can I offer our condolences on the death of your father and ask you whether abandoning the peace talks is something your father would have wanted to see.
Thank you very much for the condolences, sir, you have offered me. I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate the Islamic world, my friends and the friends of my father, the martyrdom of His Excellency Professor Burhanuddin Rabbani, President of Islamic State of Afghanistan, the head of High Peace Council, and the martyr of peace. I don't think President Rabbani would have abandoned the peace talks, but the murder of President Rabbani, my father, has shown that these pigs of terrorists are not willing to talk under any circumstances. My father hosted them in their home, opened his arms, and the first thing he said was to be peace upon you, and at return the suicide bomber exploded himself, martyring my father on the spot.
So was it futile to start the talks in the first place, given the distrust that you're now expressing?
I don't fully trust the cooperation of the Pakistani government, because their double standards in the past have proven not to be an effective strategy in Afghanistan. I think my president and commander-in-chief has stated very clearly what this country and the people of Afghanistan expect, especially when it comes to this investigation and for future involvement of Pakistan in Afghanistan affairs.
Mr. Naqvi, let me ask you, what President Karzai appeared to be saying was Pakistan is the Taliban is Pakistan. He made it as straightforward as that, and it also seems to be a message coming from the White House as well.
Well, first I would like to express my condolences at the sad death of Professor Burhanuddin Rabbani. I had the pleasure of meeting him way back in 1981 or 82, when he was one of the resistance leaders, and we had got them here in Islamabad to take them to Montreux in Switzerland for a meeting with the OIC Afghanistan committee. So it's very sad, and I think it's going to be very disastrous development has been a very disastrous development for the overall Afghan situation and the peace process. Now, as to what President Karzai says and what the Afghan intelligence says, I mean, that is their version. Afghanistan imbroglio is one where there are different narratives, and the whole picture is rather murky. So it's very easy to blame everything on Pakistan and to say that, you know, Pakistan is Taliban and Taliban is Pakistan, but it is grossly unfair.
But isn't it murky because the Pakistani authorities have done nothing to help clear the water on this one?
Pakistan itself is engulfed, in my view. I don't represent the government in any case. Pakistan itself is engulfed in the murky waters that you're talking about. I mean, Pakistan has to be seen as a victim of the situation rather than a manipulator of the situation. We are trying to
unfortunately victims in the hands of its own military agency and the government. Sir, this involvement of Pakistan in Afghanistan just does not start after September 11, 2001. If we see the history of Afghanistan, especially since 1992, the involvement of ISI favoriting opportunist movements in Afghanistan, such as Gulbuddin Hekmatyar's Hizb Islami, and also during at the time Sheikh Omar Abdurrahman's fascination of exploding World Trade Center, you know, with the blessings of the ISI was a proven fact. ISI must and Pakistan must realize that they have, you know, we are open to our neighbors. We are peace-loving people, but at the same time we must practice our independence.
I'm going to have to give
our Pakistani brothers know that.
Mr. Samad a chance to come in here. We will get back to this idea of the ISI and how far it's going in just a moment. But Mr. Samad, talking to us from Paris, why do you think Pakistan needs to have influence in Afghanistan, or feels it must have influence in your country?
Well, this is a question that goes back a few decades in order to find out what Pakistan's strategic outlook is in regards to Afghanistan, the whole region, and its other neighbor, India, and how Afghanistan is a pawn, been viewed as a pawn on the strategic checkboard that Pakistan is playing. I think that for Afghans, overwhelmingly, regardless of ethnicity, region, or language or anything, we have come to a point where we have had enough of these games that are being played. Our future is at stake. The fact that we are a peace-loving nation, and I agree with Mr. Rabbani, and I also want to convey my condolences through you to him and to his family and to all Afghans and all peace-loving people around the world on the death and martyrdom of Professor Rabbani. But the Afghan people would like nothing but peace, but a just peace, one that is based on mutual respect, independence, and sovereignty of the country. And we are seeing over the last decades, over time, that a proxy type of warfare has been waged on Afghanistan, where different groups are being used as strategic assets in order to provide the kind of influence that Pakistani military thinks it needs.
Another stage. Is President Karzai playing to a domestic audience here who says, look, after the assassination of Professor Rabbani, you can't talk to these people any longer? Or does he seriously believe that by saying, Pakistan, it's entirely up to you, that will do the job?
I believe that President Karzai is speaking to different audiences. You have on one hand right now major tensions brewing between the United States and Pakistan over the Haqqani group and their role in Afghanistan and beyond. At the same time, the Afghan people who have suffered so heavily over the years, as I said, reached a point where they would like to see credible, concrete change on the part of Pakistan, not just rhetoric, which has been the case for years. We would like to see the Pakistanis really make an effort that is real, an effort that is tangible, an effort that is verifiable, in order to shut down those networks that feed extremism and militancy in Afghanistan and in our region, and which also targets Pakistan in its future.
Can I get a reaction to that, or an assessment of that, from Mr. Naqvi in Islamabad? Do you believe the authorities in your country are in any way willing to take on those groups accused by both Kabul and Washington of fomenting the trouble?
Well, you see, in the first place, it's possible that there might be groups that are operating in Pakistan and which tend to do things in Afghanistan. But by the same token, there might be groups in Afghanistan. There have been incursions into Pakistan territory in Dir and Chitral. Recently, several hundred people came and attacked some military installations and some other groups with whom they had problems. Now, the whole thing is, Mr. Foster, I think that we have to look at it not by sort of pillaring Pakistan and saying that they are the troublemakers and we are all very good. Nobody is good or bad.
Excuse me, but that really wasn't the question. And if you wouldn't mind answering the question, Mr. Rabbani, I see you want to come in, but I will come back to you in just a second. Mr. Naqvi, the question was simply, is there a will in your country to do something about this?
Of course there is. I mean, we have already paid 30,000 sacrifice of life of 30,000 people, 5,000 military personnel besides the 30,000 civilians. We are fighting a very difficult war against extremists and militants, and there are all kinds of groups. It's not just the Haqqani network, there are so many other groups as well. Now, in regard to the attacks in Kabul, the attack on the Intercontinental, and then the September 10 truck bomb, and then the attack on the US Embassy, and now we are also being blamed, the Pakistanis are being blamed for Professor Rabbani's
Mr. Rabbani
assassination.
Wanted to come in at that point. I think we should allow you to, sir.
No,
Sir,
can I just
my only simple question is that the gentlemen from Islamabad, they say that they are victims of terrorism, and 30,000 individuals are killed. I need to ask a fair question here, which is that, you know, it was stated and documented that the Pakistani army, especially ISI, was involved in murdering its own citizens. Does that number include that as well? Besides that, I also like to raise a question that these elements that are operating are clearly operating from Pakistan. They are involved in Kashmir, they are involved in Afghanistan, and your government's links goes all the way to North Korea.
Mr. Rabbani, we must remember that Mr. Naqvi doesn't represent the government. He has been an ambassador in the past.
Sir, but
just allow me to finish. Allow me to finish on this one, if you would. Do you want to come back on that one, Mr. Naqvi?
Yes, I was saying that, you see, all these attacks which I mentioned, there is about 200 miles of territory between the northern areas, the North Waziristan area and Kabul. How is it that these groups have reached Kabul and done these kinds of things without any interception, without any check on the part of the Afghan security forces in that 200-mile area?
Well, let me ask Mr. Samad to come back on that one. Let me ask Mr. Samad to give his response to that. I think the inference is that there must be some kind of help inside Afghanistan for this to be allowed to happen. Is that a fair summation?
Well, you know, I don't know. I don't think anybody really knows the facts of how these networks operate, but it is obvious to everyone that they have a reach that goes across certain areas of Afghanistan. But the point is that without the bases that they enjoy, and the sanctuaries that they enjoy beyond Afghanistan's borders into Pakistan's tribal regions, these groups would not be able to have such power and such reach inside Afghanistan, were it not for the logistics, for the sanctuaries, for the military training, financing, and otherwise. So my point is that at this juncture, we have an opportunity. Pakistan has an opportunity to realize that the policies that they have followed over the years has really not amounted to anything for them or for us or for anybody. Maybe they think that it is going to amount to something once the US and NATO disengages from Afghanistan, but that is not correct, because I think that the international community is committed to Afghanistan for the long term. The Afghan people are very much united when it comes to this issue of fighting militancy and extremism in our region. And we need to see eye to eye finally. We need to find some solutions that are practical, that are meaningful, and that actually does change this situation for the better for all of us.
Can I ask you about the statement from the brother of the former Northern Alliance leader, Ahmed Zia Massoud, has been talking this week, and his accusation is that, yes, President Karzai has to be, if you like, operating hand in glove with the Pakistanis for this to be allowed to happen, and that the Northern Alliance should rearm. And the corollary of that could possibly be further destabilization of Afghanistan, if not a return to civil war. I mean, is he playing to a gallery, or is he voicing some realistic possibilities?
Well, I think that a lot of people in Afghanistan have been put on the defensive as a result of the very deadly approach that has been taken by the militants and those who support them outside of Afghanistan. On the other hand, I believe that we need to give a chance to the process, but under different conditions. This process has to be strengthened in Afghanistan. This process has to have popular support. Today, if you look at the Parliament, the Senate, civil society, all sectors of life in Afghanistan agree that we need to have a common national approach to this, and I think the president needs to take advantage of this. And by engaging Pakistan instead of the Taliban, whom we cannot find and we do not know where they are, instead of engaging them, by engaging Pakistan, which is what we have done, we need to go a step further and make sure that this is not just rhetoric at the same time, because the Afghan government has been engaging the Pakistani government for a while. It hasn't amounted to much, and we need to go further in this.
Then I think we need to come back to Mr.
Naqvi in the region as well
on this point, because I wonder if it was coincidental timing, the fact that maybe 2 days ago members of the ISI or security service, members of the military, members of the the lawmaking bodies sat down and decided that just as Karzai was about to say, no, we don't talk to the Taliban, we will talk to the Taliban. Why do you think that approach is now being espoused?
Well, I mean, what President Karzai has said is something very new. And it is a reaction, a gut reaction to what the recent incidents have been. Afghan government has been talking to the Taliban. The Parliament of Pakistan met, and you are referring to that. It was not the sort of military or the ISI that was meeting. They were briefing the Parliament, and then the Parliament passed its own resolution. And in that resolution, they said that there is no military solution. Well, I mean, well, because this is the logical thing. I mean, the Americans say this also. By the way, we have kept out of the discussion the United States completely so far, and that is another major player, in fact, the biggest player in that region, in this region at the moment.
So was it a move to mend relations with the United States in any way? Because there's a possibility that the US is so furious at the moment, it could decide to put Pakistan back on the list of state sponsors of terrorism?
It has never put Pakistan on the list of state sponsors. It had once put Pakistan on the watch list. Now, that would be a grievous mistake, because if they were to do so, and they can do what they wish, but the government of Pakistan has made it very, very clear always that we are trying to deal with this problem. And if the role of the ISI is highly exaggerated in my view in terms of the perceptions of Afghans and the Americans also, because the ISI does have contacts with all kinds of militant groups. So does the CIA, so does the Afghan security agency. I mean, that does not mean that they are manipulating them to do things which would be detrimental to the peace and the stability of the area. We have to be realistic. If we say that we are good and Pakistanis are bad, there is no discussion, Mr. Foster. I mean, that's not fair.
Mr. Rabbani and Mr. Samad, if I could come to you as we get towards the end of the programme. As Afghans, how dangerous do you think your country is now in terms of falling back into the kind of civil war and disruption that we saw so many years ago, and the problems that then came with that, pitting Afghan against Afghan?
I don't think we will be seeing that kind of situation in future. In reaction to my friend's statement from Islamabad in regards to the gut reaction of Hamid Karzai, my commander-in-chief, I take this as an insult to the Afghan nation that when the former president and the head of its peace council is murdered in his own home, and they refer to that as a gut reaction. My commander-in-chief is a nationalist, an Afghan, a strong man, and he has thought in every single way, and he gets advice by many smarter people from the world in regards to the Afghan and Pakistani affairs.
Mr. Rabbani, I'm going to have to go to Mr. Samad now, and I'm going to ask you, Mr. Samad, to say you talked about an opportunity here. What now needs to be done? And if you could keep it relatively brief, I'd be very grateful.
I think that the Afghan people stand united today in terms of dealing in how to approach this issue of threats that exist beyond our borders. At the same time, the international community approves and is agreement with us. We need to use every lever possible in order to make sure that those who are against real peace and real stability have to be made accountable in one way or the other. And at the same time, we need to realize that Afghanistan's stability very much will impact the stability of the whole region. And using proxy warfare and using extremism as a tool for strategic advancement has never worked and will never work. And this has to change, and this perception that has been created has to be modified.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much indeed to you and to all of our guests in Islamabad, Ali Sawat Naqvi. In Paris, we heard from Omar Samad, and from Kabul, Jalal Rabbani. Thank you to our viewers for joining us on this edition of Inside Story. Do drop us a line if you like. Comments and suggestions, welcome. Inside Story at aljazira.net. From me, David Foster, and the rest of the team, goodbye for now.